You're now watching the Danny Mac Podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Welcome back into the Danny Mac Podcast. I'm Dan McNeil. It's the BetRivers Podcast Network. Everybody is all sealed up with the Bears except for the first two-round picks. It's Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze who need to put their signatures on a document, and then the Bears will be all squared away and ready to get to training camp. And Bears are center stage with our guest today. It's our pleasure to have the company of Erik Kramer, the former Bears quarterback, joining us from his digs in California. Erik, thank you for the time. Very exciting times back in Chicago. Look at all those shiny new toys in the Bears offense. Who knew?
Well, this has been coming, right, for a few years now. It's kind of been, stacking the building blocks. And I think, this is probably the most anticipated season the Bears have had in, 20?
I would think at least
there's a lot of, like you mentioned, on both sides of the ball, there's a lot of shiny new toys.
And one of the things that is going to be fun to watch is to see how Rome Odunze, the wide receiver, fits in. He's a pretty big guy. I assume they will play him at the X, get him close to the boundary. Why do you suspect receivers have so much of a difficult time making the transition to the pro game? That's a high bust rate. And I don't like to say bust rate. High miss rate is probably a better way of describing it. But why is a receiver struggle?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily – you probably have thought about this much longer than I have or witnessed it. But, DJ Moore is solid as a rock and has proved that. Rome Odunze, I expect to be everything he was in college, which was as you mentioned, he's sizable, he's fast, he's aggressive with his hands, he wins the jump ball, competitive ball stuff. He runs good routes. You've got probably their best overall complete receiver they've ever had in Keenan Allen. And I mean, take your choice. And then everybody always forgets about Cole Kmet, and I think he is a rock star waiting to happen. And then DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert, and don't forget about the guy. Whether he decides to run it or throw it, Caleb Williams is kind of magical himself. What I would say, I know you haven't asked a question, but do you have a question for me for Caleb Williams? Because I'm dying to say something.
But please, of course, I'm just warming you up here with the light stuff. Yeah, let's talk about the most important position. What do you like?
So let me first start off by saying what I haven't seen enough of yet. And that is where he decides to take what the defense gives him and make the game simple. Like, there's too many times that I've seen, and I haven't watched every one of his games, but in the games I have watched, there's too many times where read one's open, and then read one doesn't get the ball, and then read 4 or 5 isn't open, and then all chaos break loose, and then he finds somebody. The game needs to be more simple than that. Do you remember a few years ago when Patrick Mahomes spent the first half a season or 2/3 of a season doing just what I described? And then he kind of got himself back to doing what was fundamentally sound, and off they went. And I think that, to me, I haven't seen enough of that just yet of Caleb Williams. But given that they've drafted him number 1 overall, I imagine that they've gone through enough video with him explaining what his reads were and what he either did or maybe should have done, and now feel very comfortable in that he has the ability to learn on the move, because that's really what it's all about. Nobody comes out of college into their first year as kind of the shiny, new, forever finished product. You learn as you go. And obviously, Caleb Williams has learned an awful lot in his, brief college career. And there's enough there to show that he's going to continue following that same path.
Eric, Shane Waldron is the new offensive coordinator. Caleb Williams has a quarterback's coach. The quarterback's coach has an assistant to the quarterback's coach. There's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. How important is it to streamline the number of voices in this young
So
man's
here's
head?
what makes me nervous about the quarterback coach that came from Carolina. The guy who I think had the worst drop back fundamentals of all the quarterbacks playing last year was the one in Carolina. And he looked the same as he did in college, which was like he's got all day to throw. Well, you don't. And not only can't the line pass protect for you forever, the receivers need the ball out of your hands quickly and through the progression quickly. That makes me nervous that that's the guy who just coached, was it
Derek May, or I'm
Young,
sorry,
Bryce Young? No,
Drake
Bryce
May.
Young in Carolina.
Okay.
And so, right? Isn't he the, did I get this right or wrong?
Yeah, Bryce Young is the Panthers quarterback. I thought you were talking about North Carolina, the college,
no. I'm
where
talking about
Drake
Carolina
May
Panthers,
was
right?
the school.
And
Okay,
so,
the Panthers.
yeah,
Okay.
I think, and to me, again, that's where Caleb Williams kind of, to me, lacks a little bit of just a nice, efficient, smooth, kind of almost liquid pass drop where you play with that fluidness. And like I said, it oftentimes looks like he's kind of a whirling dervish back in the backfield when it really isn't that difficult. Like things are structured in a way where you drop back in time, you read the coverage on time, you anticipate throws, the guy catches the ball, and away he goes. I think as long as the Bears keep it that simple, which I think Shane Waldron and his staff will do, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think there's just the right mix of coaches, young players throughout the team, and I really like where the Bears are positioned to start this season. I thought they were going to be this way last year, but I didn't count on Justin Fields kind of backsliding where he began the year before. I think Caleb Williams today is already better than that.
You also are a Bagent man. You liked Tyson Bagent last year, and he's going to be in the mix. And I agreed with you. He looked like he belonged in that Saints game, slinging it around. It didn't continue, but he sure looked like he belonged, didn't he?
No doubt. I mean, there's not a game he played in where he didn't look like he belonged, and I think that's what you want. I mean, if you stack up enough of those guys, you're gonna win a lot of games, and that can figure out what they're supposed to do in the manner in which they're supposed to do it. And again, this is great because you have to have depth, not just starters. Guys go down with injuries. All kinds of things happen. We saw what happened last year with the offensive guard. I can't remember his name right now, but he came from Tennessee, and he had a death in the family that he was dealing with all year. And so things happen, and you do need depth. And I love Tyson Bagent.
Yeah, Nate Davis, there were a lot of expectations, and he didn't really settle in very much after that. One thing I really find to be interesting and I think beneficial for the Bears, maybe you don't agree, is the life experience Caleb Williams has accrued while a college athlete. Earnings of more than $10 million. It doesn't seem like the big stage will phase him in the slightest.
Right. I'm not sure I made $10 million in my career. So the fact that he made it before he's even out of college is a good thing. And I think that, handling everybody in the last year or two that has either built him up or torn him down, and he's played for two of the biggest spotlight universities in America, I think you're right. I think he's come out of this really prepared. He's learned, it was the same system pretty much, right, that he had at Oklahoma with the same coach that went to USC. So, but he had to learn a whole new cast of characters around him. And, for the same reason I like Caleb Williams, I also like Bo Nix. And I think both of those players have been through their share of adversity and yet have worked their way through it. Because, quite honestly, Dan, I don't care what profession you're in or how old you are. The fall or several are coming your way. And how do you get back up and repeatedly get back up? And that's really where it's at. Can you keep improving even after getting knocked down? And that's a mindset. That's a
Six
mindset that
quarter.
you have to be kind of determined and have experience having dealt with that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. 6 quarterbacks were chosen in the first 12 picks. Not all of them are going to work out. In fact, there's an excellent chance half of them will be huge disappointments. Any of the 6 strike you as most likely to succeed or most likely to fail?
Well, let's see. The most likely to succeed category, I think, is going to include Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix. Those 3 would be my top 3 choices. I haven't seen enough of what's the kid's name from LSU that went to Washington?
Jaden Daniels.
He could turn out to be great too. That's just not the feeling I get that's going to happen. He might. He's going to need to. He's going to need to take a lot of steps because if you remember, the year before his senior year, he was not projected to be much of anything draft-wise, and yet look at what he did in that 1 year. So maybe he'll prove me wrong. I hope he does. And then the other guy, I think, is J.J. McCarthy. That I don't think he'll get to the heights of where he was picked or that people project him to be. When I saw him, work out, like I think it was pro day or I think it was pro day. He just looks too rigid, really. And by that I mean, like, you want to play this game with a certain kind of fluidness and anticipation, and I didn't see that. I saw him kind of be a little bit more stiff and kind of just like drive the ball, which is, I mean, announcers like to talk about how great that is, arm talent. Well, how about just throw the ball fluidly, let the guy catch the ball in stride, move a defender around or two, and look like you're playing ahead of the game. And I don't care if you can throw the ball 50 yards or 150 yards. You want to throw the ball with the right loft and anticipation and trajectory so that it's an easily catchable ball. And that's what I don't see J.J. I've seen him do it some, but I don't see him do it consistently enough. But he's fresh out of college.
The schedule came out this week, and the Bears can't complain about having a last place schedule. They get their annual date with Carolina. Love that. And the Panthers owner David Tepper, I think, is the genie inside the lamp for Bears GM Aladdin Ryan Poles. The division is kind of stacked, though, and they get to it late. 9 non-division games before Thanksgiving in Detroit, and then they've got the Lions again in a few weeks. They've got to play San Francisco on the road. It is a bitch of a schedule down the stretch, but that division, it should be the best in football.
I agree with you. And I like the fact, though, that you got the first half of the season where you've got a lot of young players, and you've got especially the guy pulling the trigger in Caleb Williams, that he can learn that kind of those first 4 to 6, 7 games could be here's how I make decisions week to week and kind of start to slowly build my foundation that people can then learn to rely that I'll do my job. And then, hopefully you get through, say the first 8 games. Let's say you're, 4-4, 5-3 even. Then the second half, he's no longer a rookie. And he's starting to learn the rhythm of the week and the games. And yes, he's a first-year player in the NFL, but he's not a first-year player period. I mean, he's had experienced a lot of success from day one in college. You can't say that about every quarterback out there.
Mm-hmm. You no longer are the last quarterback to engineer a Detroit Lions playoff victory. In fact, Jared Goff has done it
Twice, right?
twice. Uh, and I know you were happy for him. Will you be happy for Caleb Williams equally when he breaks your Bears single
Will he?
season record of
Will he?
passing yards? Boy, if he doesn't,
It's been
everybody's
a
fired.
while. I know. He should, and I hope he does. Yes, because that's not a record that should be around as long as it has been. And I think he's got. I think he is very capable himself of just playing the game efficiently, and with like I was mentioned before. I think they have a good staff offensively and defensively. But more importantly, I think they've got a lot of good young players that, in a short amount of time themselves, have learned how to play this game. Look at Braxton Jones. Look at in 2 years. I mean, he's a devastating run blocker, but he got abused as a pass blocker his first year. Last year, he looked solid to me all the way through, and I think that's what a lot of what you can say about a lot of the young players the Bears now have is think back to the guy they drafted, the other DB, the corner that's playing nickel corner now for the Bears. His first few games, he was in the second round pick, I think, and
Kyler
Tyler
Gordon.
Gordon. He couldn't cover me, and then I got a few hip replacements, and so, but look at him now, and he had a very solid season. He's a ball hawk now, so that's what I think. When you've got good young players like that the Bears have drafted very well, and you throw Caleb Williams and the other young players that they got around this year. The linebacker they got from was it Iowa, undrafted free agent, Jack. Can't think of his name right now, but what an awesome outside linebacker he's turned into be. So I mean, yeah, Jack
Sanborn.
exactly.
Jack Sanborn.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited. You asked about Jared Goff breaking being the first quarterback since I was there to win a playoff game and win two. Super. I hope they do it again. I hope they win the Super Bowl next year. And same with the Bears. I think that you mentioned the division. Why can't the Bears win it? I think they're going to be right there at the end with everybody. And but so is Green Bay, and so is Detroit, and everybody. Minnesota, other than a quarterback, seems like they got it going on too. So I think you're right. I think it's a tough division, and I like the way the schedule's set up for the Bears to hopefully get out to a good start.
It's like 1995 all over again without the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bringing up the rear. And that's something that's weird about your single season record that still is the Bears' best was only the fourth best passing total in the division that year. The division was a bitch in the mid-90s. I was talking to Wanstead about that the other day for the book I'm working on, and it's like, I know it sounds like an excuse, but it doesn't make it any less true. It's hard to leapfrog a team led by Brett Favre.
Well, I mean, there was 4 or 5 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks just in the NFC, and like you said, 2 or 3 of them were in the NFC Central at that time. So, there's. I like though that as we've seen here lately, it's become where it's almost illegal to play too physical on defense, and the passing game has begun to flourish. But you still to win late in the season, you've got to have a nice combination of running, drop back, and play action pass, or you're obsolete.
Erik, last thing, and always appreciate your time. How have sales gone for the ultimate comeback, and what are you doing right now for the mental health community to spread the message?
You asked about the ultimate comeback book, which is doing very well. yesterday, actually Tuesday. So today's Thursday, right? So Wednesday, went back and did a package speaking presentation in Detroit with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Former Lions teammate Ken Dallafor is an executive there, and we had a great time. I was their keynote speaker. Always end up talking about the mental health program that trying to get going for kids and families, which is just had another Zoom call about that today. And we've got to raise funds to just get the what would you call it, the curriculum, and have it measured as it's growing. And we've got 3 individuals, myself, Catherine Casimir, and Tim Thane, all involved in it. Tim's a licensed psychologist, but I don't think he's done work. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I don't think he's done that work for about 20 years, but he's a genius of a person. Catherine has her feet on the ground with a small nonprofit she has called Bright. But what we need is, more research, a group of social workers that she's connected to. So I think this is going to probably take, a good solid 6 months for us to kind of do all that so that we can get the pilot ready and launch that. So I'm excited, but we've been at this now about 4 or 5 years, and we got splintered really because of this book deal. But we're kind of getting the band back together, so to speak. So I'm excited for where this is going.
Good deal.
And because I don't want to just talk about a program. I want to have a program. And I don't want to talk about one in the future that's coming. I want actually one on the ground. But it takes a lot of work. And everybody that's committed to this is doing it in a part-time fashion at the moment.
Well, I have a feeling you'll roll up your sleeves and get the job done,
doubt.
man.
Thank you.
Thank you for the visit, Erik. Always enjoy it. You have a good remainder of your off season, and I'll hopefully catch you during September when it's time to roll.
I'll be back. I always come back for at least one Bears game, so hopefully we'll connect and see you back then.
Awesome. Erik Kramer, the former Bears quarterback. I want to thank Sam Michael, who is the executive producer of the Danny Mac podcast. Adam Delavitt runs the show for the BetRivers Podcast Network, with thanks to Randy Merkin, Alex Pastor, and Troy Mocker as well. Have a great weekend. I'll be back with more football yak next week. I'm Dan McNeil.